Welcome everybody to the 27th stream of DBB Live. Hope you've all had a great day so far and are ready to talk some Detroit basketball here before they play their final preseason game against the Mavericks. I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys, and I am joined, as always, by the awesome himself, Jack Kelly from Detroit Bad Boys. Jack, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Wes. I'm really good, man. We've had about a week and a half of preseason play, and I think we've seen some really encouraging things, some weird things, some bad things. But yeah, it's really good to have the Pistons back on TV, back on the court, and us having things to talk about after 6 months of talking about the off season and all kinds of things. It's really good to have some basketball to chat about.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, let's just dive right into that, all right? Because I actually, just because of work stuff, I didn't get to watch the game last night, and for whatever reason, it didn't record on my direct TV, so I was a little bummed about that. But whatever. What were your main takeaways out of it? And give me some breakdowns on how some guys looked, like Ausar, Cade, even Killian Hayes, who I saw got the start.
So I think I'll just start with a bit of like a game overview of how the game kind of played out, and then I'll get into some players. Um, the first thing that stood out, so OKC essentially played their starting five minus obviously SGA, but they had Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, and for some reason I'm forgetting someone, but they pretty much had four of their five starters. And the Pistons came out. They had Killian Hayes at the two, Cade at the one, Ausar, Stu, and Duran. So my first thought when I saw that was like, wow, there is the spacing. Like I think Pistons Twitter there's been a few fights recently just about the starting lineup and who should be starting. And I was just thinking this spacing's not going to work. But defensively, that group of five, they had about a 6 minute stint where Jalen Duran was just his physicality. Chet Holmgren couldn't get by him, couldn't take him off the dribble. He was fumbling it. They were disruptive. They had a possession where they had multiple blocks at the rim, and then Ausar pushed it and found Killian for a three in transition. That first 6 to 7 minutes was like, wow. Like spacing is a major issue, but if you're playing defense like this and just like even Jalen Williams was struggling to get to the rim, like OKC really the length and sort of athleticism of that group of five really bothered OKC. And yes, I know it's preseason, but I think those five together looked really promising on defense. And the Pistons were up; they were winning. I think they got up by 10 points maybe early, and then OKC sort of got back into it. And like that group, yes, the outside shooting like wasn't great. Like Cade had two possessions in a row, sort of opened the game where he got into the teeth of the defense and then kicked it out to the corner, and Stu missed a three. And then the next possession, I think Killian might have missed a three. So the spacing issues there, but defensive, they look really, really good. And then the bench came in and it wasn't great. I guess I'll start here. Jaden Ivey, I've been a big supporter of him, but he had probably one of his worst halves of basketball. He turned it over like four times. I think he had like two or three in a row. And that bench unit really missed like a pure point guard. And yeah, like the Pistons end up getting down by like 12 halfway through the second. And then it was really rough. It was really, really rough. Jaden just looked frazzled. It was kind of like I feel like he's a player that I can see on one hand how he can be like that instant offense coming off the bench, but because he's so like, this is where he reminds me of Russell Westbrook because he's just like so intent, like 100 miles an hour all the time and struggles to find pacing. And he was just forcing things. And yeah, it impacted the rest of the offense and it looked really bad. But so he had a bad first half. And then the starters came back in. They got it back to about even at halftime. And then, yeah, the second half, Ausar Thompson, I'm just going to hit on him. I'm a bit all over the place at the moment, but I'm just going to start with Ausar Thompson.
Real quick, Jack. I want to ask who was out there off the bench there with Jaden Ivey? Was that a pretty heavy lineup? Was he truly running the point guard? What was the situation around him as well?
So
because with Hayes
yeah,
in the first unit, it gets kind of interesting.
So they had Marcus Sasser. Marcus was, I guess, the point guard. He was in the backcourt with Jaden, and he looked a bit hesitant at times. But those two together, in my mind, I see and I put this back to you, Wes. What do you see of Marcus Sasser? I see him as more of it's definitely a score first guard, in my opinion. I like when the Pistons drafted him, like I love the idea of him next to Cade or next to Killian or next to Monte. So the offense just sort of stagnated, and then they had Bagley was the first big off the bench. Slipping my mind, the others is bad, but they had Alec Burks, and then who was at the 4? Joe Harris. But the offense just sort of stagnated, and Jaden was sort of forcing things. He was trying to score. It was a bit messy.
Interesting.
But I guess that one of the biggest positives in the first half was Ausar Thompson. Like you and I pre-draft. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Like I wasn't that high on him, and I've been proven very wrong so far. I know we're in the preseason, but man, he's rebounding translates. Like he's leading the Pistons in rebounds in the preseason. I think James Edwards put out a tweet. He's had 8 rebounds or more in like every game he's played in Pistons colors, summer league, and and preseason, which is huge because he can just having that at the 3, or if he's going to play the 4, or he's going to play the 2, like his ability to grab and go is because he can push it at such a pace, and then he has such a good decision maker. I feel like in transition, it's such a weapon. And he had multiple instances last night. Just found, like I said before, he blocked a shot, then found Killian at the other end down the corner for a 3. I think he found Cade for a 3 in transition. He was really impressive, and he hit 2 threes as well. Which, I mean, if he's hitting the 3 ball, I feel like, yeah, he was 2 of 4. He hit both in the first quarter, but yeah, he's been very impressive for a rookie. And the thing that really impressed me with Ausar last night, and I think this is something you and I have discussed, Wes, was he did some things in the half court. Like he one of his assists, he sort of broke down. I can't remember who it was from OKC off the dribble at the top of the key, drove into the teeth of defense, then just kicked it out to Cade for a wide open 3. He collapsed the defense, kicks it out to Cade. And I mean, that was one of the areas I want to see Ausar continue to develop is his sort of creation in the half court. And just seeing him already do that against OKC was just really, really encouraging. And because I think from day one transition, he's going to be, I mean, we're seeing it. Like, I think he might already be the Pistons' best player in transition. Like, I don't think that's an overstatement. But to see him doing things in the half court, like he had another really good drive in the half court and finish. Yeah, he was ultra impressive. And I think the other guy, look, I'll hit on Cade. He's always that slow burn. I feel like in the regular season, he did it last season. He did it as a rookie. It's going to take him 4 or 5 games for him to find that, at least as a scorer. I feel like naturally he always wants to get everyone else involved first, which I think is great for the point guard position, to not always be score first. But yeah, him and Jalen Duren's chemistry is, I mean, you wouldn't know they've barely played together. They had a couple of really nice lobs. He had another really nice pass to Jalen Duren, who got fouled by Chet. And then Cade, he found that mid-range shot. He got blocked at the rim. He had in the first quarter. He got to the free throw line for a couple of free throws. And then the third quarter, he hit a couple of threes, both off the catch, which was really encouraging because he's now, I think, 4 of 8 in the preseason from 3. And that's the one thing we've been talking about all off season. We want to see him really knock down those catch and shoot threes just to get those easier points, hit down those open looks. And he had a nice take off the dribble. So yeah, I mean, in terms of positives, what else do we have? I mean, Jalen Duren, once again, like I was really impressed with his defense in that first 6 minutes. That first 6 minutes, he was bothering Chet. And honestly, whenever he was on Chet struggled. Chet got it going once Bagley and Wiseman were in, which I probably don't think would surprise you, Wes, but Jalen Duren's defense was really good. And then Isaiah Stewart, once again, had a bit of a weird game. I've noticed a trend. He's doing everything really well as like a 5-man. Like his finishing around the rim seems to really have improved. There's a confidence with him now. Like he had a couple of really nice post hooks yesterday. He's even dunking. His roll, like obviously we know he's a below the rim player, but when he rolls to the rim now, I feel like he's gotten a lot better at trying to figure out like how to score, obviously without dunking. And then he had a couple of nice blocks. His rebounding is always strong. But unfortunately for Isaiah, the 3-point shot was just not there. I think he might have been 0 of 6 last night. It kind of looked bad from the jump because his first shot was Cade broke down the defense. Cade kicks it to him in the corner, wide open. And I think he just grazed part of the backboard, like not the side of the backboard. It was a rough miss. And I mean, he's still shooting him. There we go, 0 of 7. But I think no matter what Stu's opening, I think he's still going to get at least 3 to 5 games to start at the 4 in the regular season. Even if he plays there and has another stinker from 3, I still think they're going to give him a few games to prove it. But if he can't, like I think he had 0 of 6 in the first game, or maybe 1 of 6, and then an 0 of 7. That inconsistency from 3, I just don't think will work. So that's going to be something really interesting to monitor. But
so real quick on that, I'm going to sound like the worst Isaiah Stewart defender on the internet, but I honestly I don't think it's his fault. And I say that only because there's a real fine line in terms of the distinction between Isaiah Stewart being out there as a floor spacer and Isaiah Stewart being out there as a guy who can also shoot the 3 every now and then. Last year when he played the 4, a lot of times he was flanked by Bojan. Yeah, also Duren when he was out there. But I mean, Ivy was shooting the ball fairly well, and you had Killian Hayes running the point guard. That was generally the lineup that you saw him out there. He's not the floor spacer there, right? But if you trot out a lineup that features Killian Hayes, Ausar Thompson, and Jalen Duren, you need your shooters to be Cade Cunningham and Isaiah Stewart. And at that point, you're actually functionally relying on him to space the floor instead of it being a nice, like, fun little side thing he can do. And when he's being relied on that heavily, it's more focused on by the defense. It's more focused on by himself. He's got more pressure to make the shots. Like I don't think that's setting him up well
so,
for success. To look at him and say you're going to be our floor spacing 4, rather than a guy who also can shoot like 35% one day. You know what I mean? So
uh,
like I'm not trying to excuse it, but I think that might be part of what's going on. At least it was the first couple of games.
no, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. And I think so. One of the big discussions, at least at halftime and throughout the game, was because that I don't think people expected that starting group to come out and sort of play the defense they played together, and have the Pistons winning. And I know it's a preseason game, but we'll take what we can get. So a discussion was who's coming out of the starting lineup for Bogey, and people either said Stu, minimal amount said Killian, or some people said Bogey's just coming off the bench. You don't get the defense they had in that 6-minute stretch or in the third quarter with that starting group without Stu on the floor, in my opinion, because he was rebounding. And so even though Killian showed signs, and I'm not trying to be a Killian hater here because he played well. He's played well in this preseason. I think Stu brings more value defensively at the 4 than Killian brings at 2. And I understand people I just think if you want to slide Ausar down to the 2, Bogey at the 3, if you're going to go defense, I think you keep Stu on. If you want to go all out offense, maybe take Stu off and you put Joe Harris at the 4, Bogey at the 3, and keep Ausar on. But I don't see Killian in the starting group. And I think Killian probably can come off the bench and be as impactful. But it's really tricky because that defense was so exciting. And then just to say, okay, let's put Bogey and take Stu out. Like, I don't think you'd get that because Stu's such a big part of that physicality. He had some block shots, he's rebounding. So, yeah, it's this starting lineup. Like, I
Let me
still
back you
don't
up on
know what we're
this
going to
too.
get.
Let me just back you up on this too, because I think you're exactly right. And the thing with Killian Hayes is that two things are true. He's the best guard defender on this team. He is not a great guard defender.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Honestly, I'm pretty might not even be right. He's an all right defensive player. Like this was the one thing that he could do along with passing and dribbling the air out of the ball sometimes at the top of the key that like you could count on him. You could count on him for like average to above average defense, good passes, and he would take care of the ball most of the time. And that's what you're getting out of Killian Hayes. That's not like Marcus Smart, right? Like you're not getting a lockdown guard defender in Killian Hayes. You're more likely to get that out of Ausar, quite honestly. So
So,
yeah, I think you're absolutely right with Isaiah Stewart.
and
He is a
this,
defender. Like Isaiah Stewart is a good big defender. Killian Hayes
and
is
this
a
was one of the
all right
things
guard defender.
in the first quarter, for as good a defense the Pistons were playing. And you can go back and look at Twitter. James Edwards tweeted out like Killian took some charges and made some plays, but he was getting blown by on the perimeter. And who's at the back there? Who's at the back helping out with all those blow bys and that kind of thing? Because Cade's defense as well, he looked quite lethargic in the first half. His defense hasn't been great, Cade. So those guards have been getting blown by. So you need, in my opinion, Stu back there with Duran just to have those huge wingspans. They can both rebound and they can cover up mistakes. So as much as I understand people who want to say bench Stu for Bogey and let's, that'll solve the spacing, I think your defense now becomes considerably worse without Stu there. So it's an interesting debate.
If you bench Stu for Boyan, you improve the floor spacing more by benching Hayes for Boyan because Stewart can shoot
Yeah.
better than Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
not even a 1-for-1 trade off. It doesn't make sense. I'm with you 100%. That doesn't make any
So
sense to me.
I do get where people are coming from when Stu's shooting 0 for 7 from 3. But like you touched on, I think you can alleviate that by putting Boyan in and you're not as reliant on Stu. So yeah, I think Stu, as we've spoken about, he's going to be a guy. I feel like he's almost no one will supersede or overtake Killian Hayes in amongst discussion, but Stu's going to get close to that guy who he should be benched. He's going to be the whipping boy. I feel like just because of that new contract and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's enough on Stu. I have no idea what the starting 5 will be opening night. Well, I think
So
I kind of do,
before
but
we get to
it's still.
questions, let me ask you this then, just like real quick, looking forward to tonight's game, right? What are one or two things that you thought went well last night against OKC that you want to see happen again, just to make sure it's real, right, against the Mavericks tonight before we actually start up the season?
Just to make sure it's real.
Yeah, like you want a confirmation, you want to see it again.
I want to see that defense we saw in the first 6 to 8 minutes. It was fun, and they were pushing the tempo. So like they were playing awesome physical defense, getting the rebound, and they were gunning it down the floor. And that was the beauty of having Ausar there because he could just push it, and they were playing with pace. So I want to see that sort of physicality on the defensive end again. Honestly, whenever Stu and Duran were on the court together with Ausar, like they were creating chaos. It felt like they were imposing. So I want to see that physicality, defense, pushing it in transition, getting it in Ausar's hands as much as possible in terms of like pushing it. And then ain't nothing. Yeah, Joe Harris. That man. Yeah, his floor spacing is. I think he hit 4 threes last night. His floor spacing is a thing of beauty. The second thing, honestly, Wes, it's the defense because the offense without Boyan, I don't know. I think it's going to come and go a lot, and it's going to be reliant sometimes on offensive rebounding. whether or not the threes are falling. But I think it just starts with the defensive intensity, honestly, and just pushing the tempo. Because this
All right.
team has a lot of athletes now. So pushing the tempo and
Pulling it up. All right. Well, why don't we hit up on some questions here then? We'll get into
let's
the
do it.
chat.
Let's do it. John Buck. Shout out to John. Do you think that it is possible that Golden State signs CP3 just in order to be a filler in a trade?
Love
Is
that we're
John
not
trying to
even
say
getting the Pistons question first. Like John just he missed last week, but our guy, he's back and he's just like, you know what, guys, let's widen the scope. We're gonna talk NBA for a little bit. And it's interesting. I don't know. Like Steve Kerr's talking really, really positively about CP3. They've even got Draymond talking positively about CP3, and we know they've butted heads in the past. Like I honestly do think it's a pretty good fit for them. Point guard off the bench or someone next to Steph Curry just to get the ball moving and get him the ball. We all know how deadly Steph can be when he's just running off screens, right? So I don't know. I think they might just like him and like to have him. And it's not like Chris Paul's a bad player anymore, right? Like he's aged pretty gracefully for his guy at his age. So I don't know. Do you think they're trying to move him? I think they might just like him.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to move him. I think they'll obviously give it until the trade deadline. And if it's looking horrible, maybe. But I think whilst Chris Paul's known for his pick and roll play, mid range sort of mastery, and that necessarily doesn't exactly 100% align with how the Warriors have played in the past, at least the pick and roll aspect. I think they brought in one of the highest IQ players in the league for a reason to pair with Steph Curry. And I understand their injury issues and maybe some of the defensive issues that are Chris Paul and Steph Curry backcourt brings you. But no, I thought they brought him in to see, like Chris Paul, typically wherever he goes, the team wins. But I don't think you can dispute that, at least in the regular season. He's a guy that always seems to hover around 50-win seasons. So even at his age of, I think he's 36 now, maybe 35. So no, I think they brought him in to try and win games, win a championship.
And like you said, I mean, they grabbed one of the highest IQ, highest feel players in the NBA, and they're sticking him in an exceptionally difficult and fluid offensive structure where like he could go crazy. It could really look very good with Chris Paul running the show there, even with him in the mid range, kind of operating there more often than not. But yeah, that's just like in terms of offensive concepts and then the type of player that they got in Chris Paul. That's almost a perfect marriage. So I'm pretty excited to watch them honestly this year. Uh, I've been looking forward to that.
Have you had a chance to watch the Warriors at all? Just on that, I haven't. I know we're a Pistons podcast, but have you seen it at all?
No, I only watch the Pistons preseason games because I can only commit that much to our guys. But as soon as the season starts, I am planning to tune in. Uh, I mean, definitely anytime they're on national TV, right? But hopefully, I can snag a couple other games here and there.
Love it. I love it. All right. Well, thanks to John. We've got another couple from John here, so let's do this one. Of the core four, who would you feel most comfortable trading? Wow.
Some heavy hitters right at the start. I love it, John.
I think I know who you're going to say. I hope I'm right.
Oh no! Well, now I don't know. Now I'm trying to think of who you think I might. Were you thinking Duran? I'm leaning Duran.
I thought you would say Duran.
Yeah, unpredictable. Yeah, no, I think I would. I think if I wouldn't want to get rid of any of them, but if you had to, if it was something really worthwhile, Jalen Duran, he's got all sorts of potential, uh, but he's also kind of the most replaceable commodity outside of the four. I mean, you could find theoretically a good defensive center who can catch lobs fairly easily. It's not tough. Um, Ivy might be next on that list, but I mean, even he's a little bit more
Wow.
unique, right? Like theoretically, if he hits, he's a high scoring guard who's super athletic. you can get high scoring guards, but they're not a dime a dozen like they were, maybe 5 years ago. It is a little bit more rare to see short guys, under 6'5" that are getting close to 25 points a night, which maybe he can do, maybe he can't, but I think that's probably his ceiling area. So that's a little bit more unique than just a good defensive big. So I would lean Duren. I don't know. What are you thinking on this one?
It's tough because you make good points. If you're just looking at it positionally, like purely positionally and size of each of these guys, like man, this is tough. I think Duran, like I want to keep all four, but I think Duran would be the fourth just. And then I think I'm honestly, this is so tough. I'm going to stick with how I've been for most of the off season because I'm trying not to get too seduced by preseason play. But I think I'm still going to have. I think it would be Duran. But I think I want to just turn it back to you. Where do you think the general, like average Pistons fan or Pistons Twitter, who do you think they're selecting? Because I think I know who it is. Oh, you're
I
on.
was
You're on
muted,
mute.
man. Oh, rookie move there. 27 episodes in. That's my fault, guys. No, I think the answer is obviously Jaden Ivey, right? I mean, people were talking online about benching him. I mean, I think I even saw some of it before the draft happened, right? Like it's kind of been a slow burn, sour turn on Jaden Ivey here online at least, and obviously Monty Williams now does have him coming off the bench. It looks like that's kind of the role they want him in to start the season. So at least at face value, that's a demotion, right? Yeah, I think most online people would say Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, 100%. It's yeah, I think I touched on it, but yeah, and honestly, watching that first half last night where he was forcing it and that kind of thing, it's as much as a Jaden Ivey fan I am, and I think he'll improve. It was very rough watching him force things and not being able to sort of organize the offense, and but he did improve a lot in the second half. But yeah, I think the general
That's just not a
consensus would
point
be
guard.
he's just not.
He's not.
Yeah, which is why I would love to see him in the starting lineup. But Coach Monty Williams obviously is trying to teach him something or prove something or help him understand. Like, I think it's the defensive stuff, but I think this will be better for him in the long run. So we'll see. I'm going to
Well,
hit
it could
another
be the
question.
defensive stuff. It could be, last year he did get off to a lot of slow starts. I mean, if you remember, he was not like a spark plug scorer. He kind of needed to warm up and get into the flow of a game a little bit. And, that's not necessarily something you want out of your starting shooting guard, right? You want him to come in and be firing right off the bat. So, maybe there's some of that. I will say, we haven't seen Monte Morris play, right? So if Morris is going to be the backup point guard, which I think by all accounts we can assume that pretty safely, that takes a lot of that pressure out of Ivy's hands. Maybe he can loosen it up and go score. Not worry about setting up the offense so much. So, he's not looked great, and it sounds like he didn't look great last night. But it's not like he's really playing the role, that even at the beginning of the season off the bench he's going to be playing. Because I really don't think he's going to be a point guard. Monty's been reluctant to play him de facto as the point guard through the three preseason games, but I can confirm two with my own eyes.
No, and last night he only played point guard. I mean, he was sharing it with Marcus Sasser, but it was due to lineups and injuries. All right, another one here from John. Oops, my bad. No, you're good. Could you imagine Cade, Ausar, Amen, Kuminga, and Duran? Can you imagine the potential of that? We've spoken about Kuminga a little bit on this podcast, this live stream.
That would be nuts. I don't know how you're getting them in though. I think Kuminga you could probably grab. Now, I mean, the price probably went up. He's looked really good, at least in terms of box score watching in the preseason. He's putting up some really good lines and doing it fairly efficiently too. I can't remember his 3-point percentage off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's been solid. so far, which has been a hurdle that he's needed to clear over the first couple seasons of his career. So I think Kuminga you could grab. There probably is a package with Bojan and more value there if you really wanted to push for it. But that price did just go up, I would bet. Amen, though, I mean, they just picked him fourth overall. They're not moving. They're not moving him. As fun as it would be, to unite the Twins. You and I were both in favor of that, even pre-draft, just because it'd be fun. Have the Twins pick together on the same team. That would have been great. But I just don't see how that one's going to happen.
Yeah. In theory, it'd be fun. I just don't think it's ever happening. Well, maybe one day Ausar and Amen somehow.
Maybe one day.
That would be a cool story for them to join up. Be interesting if I was in Detroit. That'd be a cool storyline for sure. But that's a ton of athleticism and just that would be very fun. All right. The next question here from YouTube user. Do you think we should pick up one of the fours that have recently been cut or trade a second rounder for Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
So I think you might need to do a little bit more than a second rounder, honestly, for JRE. Just because I would anticipate a lot of teams would like to grab him for cheap. So that means he's not going to be dirt cheap, right? Honestly, I wouldn't hate kicking the tires on Baisley. I did like him a bit in that draft. He's kind of a rangy four, can kind of play 3 through 5 sort of guy. He's big. He can he can do a lot of things, none of them super well, but he's got a lot of physical tools. I wouldn't hate kicking the tires on that, getting him in, having him take a bunch of G League games, with the Crews while he's the 15th guy in Detroit, and then maybe around January you've kind of cultivated something that's interesting, right? Like if he improves, he's a guy that could push livers there for that kind of rotation spot. So I wouldn't hate that. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. I still kind of like leaving that 15th spot open, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, I think, look, there's no one that jumps out to me in terms of the Pistons. Like, I don't mind Darius Baisley. I believe the Nets just cut him. So, I mean, maybe. Like you said, he's got all the tools to be that sort of big wing four-man. I feel like his shooting's very inconsistent. I think he's inconsistent overall, which is probably why a player with his, I guess, potential and that kind of thing is just being cut. But yeah, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, he's like a fun player. He's a smart player. He can shoot a little bit. I'm not sure how he goes defending at the 4. I feel like, was he playing a bit of 5 for OKC? I know he's on the Rockets now, I believe, after that trade. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Ain't nothing better than the Big Cheese. He's bringing up a name that I hadn't thought about, but yeah, I
I
mean
don't
Tari
think
Eason he'd be a good fit. I don't know if you could get away with starting him. I don't think he can really shoot the ball that well. I might be wrong on that. I didn't follow him super closely last year, but defensively and energy that he brings on that side of the floor, like yeah, I would love to get him
he's
in the room.
he's an excellent rebounder as well. For
Hmm.
someone like, he's
Him
a
and
crazy
Ausar would be
athlete.
really fun.
Yeah, and he's a guy who can put it on the floor and sort of like his decision making and sort of like, yeah, overall has probably been a bit of a question with him. I think he was out of LSU, but in terms of just sort of the skill, like the grab and go potential, the kind of stuff we see with Asar on the boards and finishing in transition, like I think he does a lot of that kind of stuff, and yeah, him and Asar would wreak a lot of havoc. But I feel like the Rockets are very high on Tari Eason, and I'm not sure that's someone the Pistons could just grab.
I agree. This isn't bad. Ain't nothing better than the Big Cheese brought up this trade here. It'd be Bagley and Burks for Oladipo, who they want to get rid of, and Eason. So you're kind of they were rumored to want Burks. I mean, we know who that rumor came from, so who knows? Toss up if it's real. But if it is, and they do want Burks, that's not a bad way to go about it. Kind of eat the contract there on Oladipo, and then get a little bit of value in Eason, who's a young guy who's solid, but that they wouldn't, that's not their top tier asset class, right? When you're looking down their roster. So I think that's reasonable. I don't know if they do it, but it's at least interesting.
I think the Rockets are very high on Eason. Maybe I'm just looking too much into Rockets Twitter and just seeing all the positive stuff, but I don't know. I don't know why they would like Alec Burks is a very good player, but I don't know if they'd be willing to sort of move that a young player like Tari Eason. But I like the thinking because we did see that rumored report from Yahoo's Jake Fisher about the
Yes.
Pistons at least being involved in some kind of discussion between centered around Oladipo, some second round picks, and Alec Burks. So it's not a bad shout from the Big Cheese.
So let's bring up this question next then, because it kind of transitioned pretty smoothly. This is ain't nothing better than the big cheese, our guy. Is there any validity to the Alec Burks trade rumors? Feels like he's the odd man out, and he's not impressed this preseason. Can't imagine how he fits into the rotation. So, what are you thinking on the Alec Burks rumor, and then if they'd even truly want to move off of him or not?
So I don't think he's the odd man out. I mean, he got the spot start in the first game and he played okay. I feel like he's a vet, so he's probably, he's done the preseason probably 12 times in his career. I don't think he's going to be coming out sort of going 100%, 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't look too much into how the vets are playing in the preseason. Um, I I think the reason the Pistons would be looking to move on from Alec Burks is because his value to a contending team or pretty much any team in the league, a team who just needs someone who can come off the bench and score 15 points a night. I think the Pistons would be looking to move him while he has a great value. I think he's on $10.5 million contract, which is an expiring one this season. So I think if he's being moved, it's to try and capitalize on his value, not as much so about him not being a fit or falling out of favor in terms of the rotation. Killian Hayes playing the way he has and Monty Williams seemed having investment in him definitely has shooken up sort of what we initially thought about the rotation. But yeah, I think either him or Boyan, we've spoken about it, Wes, the two most realistic tradable guys on the roster, I feel like, in terms of value. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him and Boyan in a lot of trade rumors throughout now until the trade deadline.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then, I mean, obviously, I've been talking about it all offseason. I think per dollar, Alec Burks is the best trade asset that this team has, right? He's only getting paid 10 mil, and the value that you're getting per that $10 million that you're paying him through the roof. He's on a ridiculously cheap contract for the type of player that he is and the type of role, like you said, that he can serve to a contending team. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be the odd man out. I think he's going to play. And it sounds like last night he was getting some run at the three, which is kind of what I'm expecting at this point now, since it does seem like Killian Hayes is going to be in the rotation somehow, some way. And we obviously haven't seen Monte Morris yet, so he might miss some games here at the start. So I do think Burks is going to play. Um, but if they move him, it's because you could get a pretty good piece, or not like a first round pick type piece, but you you could get a good young player back in return for Alec Burks, still on their rookie contract. Someone really worth kicking the tires around, seeing if they've got anything left, to give. So, um, yeah, I think the rumor is probably real, or at least in the sense that the Pistons are open to doing it. I don't know about that one in particular with the Rockets, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think that means he's an odd man out or anything like that. Like you said,
No, for sure. Yeah, I think if he's on the roster, he's playing because the things he brings are so valuable. All right, next question. Shout out to everyone for joining us tonight. All these questions, it's what makes the show so much fun. All right, next question here from YouTube user. Oh no, sorry, we've done this one. My bad. Another Darius Baisley question. Darius Baisley was on my wish list about a year ago, but had a meh season since and was just released by the Nets. I'd much prefer him as a backup five to Wiseman. Thoughts?
So I would prefer Marvin Bagley as a backup five to both Baisley and Wiseman. I'd really Baisley he's like a spot backup five. He's kind of if he plays it, you're doing it because you're going small ball. I don't really look at him as a true backup five. He's not physical enough to really hold up that spot, even against backups and not starters. I think he's more natural at the four, more of a modern four. At least that's what he profiles as. Has he actually done it yet? No, not really. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, he's got a lot of tools. He's always had a lot of tools, but by all accounts, it seems like he's a hard worker too. Um, you never know with a guy like that, right? When stuff is going to click, and he's shown flashes in the past. It's not like he's been just awful in the past. What four? Is this about to be year four for him? Year
I
five?
think so, yeah.
So there's a reason he's still sticking around in the league, right? If he was been atrocious, he wouldn't be around at all. So he's bounced around some rosters and he just got cut now. But you know, um, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. I would understand if they don't do it, but I'd be at least interested and would be curious to see how it turns out.
I just looked up Baisley's numbers, and he's a career 31% shooter from 3-point range on 3 attempts. So I guess if you were to play him at the
It doesn't
5, which
look bad. He's got
yeah,
this Marvin Bagley thing where, like, form
when
wise, it looks all right. You see him shoot and you go, oh, okay. And then it just bricks.
yeah, that's so true with Marvin Bagley. I look, putting him at the 5, I still don't think fixes any of the issues the Pistons have currently with their backup fives. Like, I think he can do some stuff defensively, but I still think he probably doesn't have the size or rebounding ability at the 5 position specifically to sort of help alleviate some of the issues Detroit have with the guys they currently have. But I mean, over Wiseman, I don't know, maybe. I'm not that high on Wiseman overall, at least with the Pistons. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. I just don't think ultimately it would make that much of a difference.
This may sound like it goes against everything I've said so far, but I do think Wiseman's got more raw talent than Darius Baisley does. So like even at that point at the five, like I would if it came down to just those two, I would give the nod to Wiseman just because there's a higher ceiling there, even if he's maybe further from it.
Can I don't want to derail the podcast here, but I have heard, and look, I've probably been guilty of like saying it, but I have heard James Wiseman and talent mentioned a lot. What is the talent? This is a genuine question.
It is all physical tools. He's a genuine 7-footer. He's athletic, he's fast, and he's pretty fluid when he gets downhill, right? So he doesn't move like a 7-footer. And then there's the flashes of skill, right? Every now and then he'll make a nice
Yeah.
dribble move. He'll knock down a three. Like it's that stuff where you look at it and you go, okay, like if all of that comes together, he's going to be a great player. Problem is, and this is something I've been struggling with myself, is just because a guy has that, has that type of ceiling, doesn't really mean it's reachable for him in particular. And I don't know if it is for James Wiseman. We don't have the type of information that would tell us yes or no to that. So yeah, I mean, he's an incredible athlete. He's massive. So from that, he could be an
So
incredible basketball player. It's just there's nothing else material there right now.
no,
So
and I'm fine with that. When we look at it through the lens of physical tools and sort of the potential, like
yeah.
I get that because the way he's built and all that's completely fair. Sometimes like yeah, there was a possession yesterday where he tried to post up Chet for like a good 12 seconds of the shot clock, and the offense was just stagnant, and it was
Why didn't he
glaring
just move?
because yeah,
Everyone in the
anyway.
chat, please forgive me. I didn't get to watch this game. why didn't the 7 foot, 250 pound James Wiseman simply move Chet Holmgren and put him in the hoop? You know what I mean? Like,
He
why?
didn't, but he couldn't. They couldn't get the ball to him, so he was just continually posting up.
Oh,
He didn't have the
okay.
ball. Instead, it was
Oh my God.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So,
I thought
but
I was
anyway,
picturing James Wiseman just like being soft and not backing him down, like
no,
like
no, no,
settling for a
no.
sky hook. Like,
I
no.
no, he didn't get the ball, and like I don't want to come across as bashing James Wiseman. I really don't. I just think Marvin Bagley has shown a lot more so far in terms of just being an instant impact off the bench. So, yeah, we're gonna move on.
Oh,
I
and
think James
speaking
Wiseman
of
has
putting
great
Chet in the
potential.
hoop, right? I did see that. Marvin
That
Bagley
was
from the
impressive.
top of the key.
No,
That was
that
nasty.
was impressive. This is very impressive. Sometimes you can forget how athletic Marvin Bagley is as well.
Mhm.
He's a pretty special athlete at times. All right, next question here from the big cheese again. Can Killian Hayes keep the momentum up when he eventually loses minutes to Monte Morris? Can Killian do enough in only 20 minutes per game, or does he need more minutes to produce offensively?
Um, all right, I'm gonna be the semantics guy. I'm gonna nitpick on something here. I don't think he's actually done anything this preseason any different than what he's done in the past. I His 3 point percentage is not up. He's not more decisive finishing around the rim. He doesn't get all the way to the rim. He's still settling a bunch for those mid-range jumpers. He's still it is the same Killian Hayes I remember watching last season. I do not, at least through the 2 games that I watched, and it looks like by all accounts from the last game that he played, even though I didn't see it, it was more of the same thing. Like, I don't think Killian Hayes has actually done anything to warrant minutes over Monte Morris at all. Like, he should lose all of his minutes to Monte Morris. I get that he's a pretty good defender, but offensively, he's still got all the same problems. He hasn't, and he's not a good enough defender to overcome that just by saying, well, you know, he can take the other team's guards, right? Like, I just think he's your third point guard to me. That's where I'm at with it. He's your third point guard to me until he can do one of get to the free throw line, finish at the rim, or shoot the three ball. He's still just as almost unplayable on offense as he was every year of his career to date, and he's not done any of those things better. So I get that he's scoring 14 points a night in the preseason, but a lot of those minutes are coming against third stringers. Yeah, he's going to do that. I've not been impressed,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I've wanted to be. I was so high on Killian Hayes in the draft, by the way. I had him number 2 that year. I was so high on Killian Hayes in that draft, and I've just been disappointed. So, sorry. There's my rant for the day.
No, I get it because I think we haven't had a chance to see Monte Morris. So I don't think people understand uh how much he's going to help this team. Like in terms just from an offensive standpoint. Like look,
Oh,
Killian's played well. But like and I think he's going to be in the rotation. It feels like he
it does.
he hasn't done anything to say he has not from where we were before the preseason, like the way he's played, he is not he's helped his case to be in the rotation. But if you look at the actual play style, like the way he is playing, it is still mid-range jumpers and it is still just shooting threes. And most of the time his percentages they're just not good enough. I think defensively he shows things. He's pretty good on ball. But the stuffing the gates when you put him next to Cade on offense, like everyone wants to attack Stu for his spacing issues at the 4, but you're playing a 2-man who no one respects from the 3-point line either. So and you have Monte Morris there waiting to come in. You have Jaden Ivey, who everyone should want to see in the rotation because he's a top 5 pick and showed a ton as a rookie and can shoot the ball off the catch, off the dribble, better than Killian. And you also have Alec Burks. And then We've seen Marcus Sasser show some flashes, who I think Killian's ahead of, definitely, for sure. But it's just when it comes down to, and Monty spoke about it, he doesn't want to play more than 10 guys in his rotation. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's done enough to show he can shoot from three or get to the rim, exactly like you said. I think he's going to play. I hope he plays well, but he should lose minutes to Monte Morris. And I think once fans get a chance to see Monte Morris and the way he can run an offense and the way he's more decisive, the way he can hit shots, like people want to look at Killian's mid-range game and he's improved a ton there. Monte Morris is one of the best mid-range shooters in the league. And he can hit threes off the catch. Yeah. I think that's enough on Killian. I'm happy for him.
I want to dig my grave a little deeper, real quick.
Go for
it. I have to say, the shooting from three or getting all the way to the rim, right? It has to be one or the other or ideally both. But the reason that kills him on offense, and this is the reason the offense has struggled with him running the show, even a little bit in the preseason. They have not been a high-scoring team in the first half in the preseason against the other team's starters. This is a large part of why. If you can't shoot and you can't get to the rim, it doesn't matter how good you can pass, because no one respects you once you start getting downhill to actually cause a rotation for you to make a really nice pass. And no one's going to close out hard to you when you're shooting to also cause rotations for you to make a nice pass. Killian Hayes does not shift the defense. So as talented as he is, doing the bowling ball passes, the hook stuff, all that great stuff, he's a really good passer. But because he can't do these other things on offense, he can't do it well. And he doesn't get to run the show as well because he doesn't shift things. And it's been the same problem. It's so frustrating.
It's the Lonzo Ball thing. It's like when he got to the league, his inability to score in the mid-range or because he got to the NBA and the level of athlete and talent was so much higher. He couldn't get to the rim as easily. And then that 3-point shot stood out glaringly. And he was able to improve it and become a really reliable catch and shoot 3-point threat. And then that opened up things for him. But he's still never been able to get back to that primary creator. Even when he was on that Bulls team, the reason he thrived is because he was playing alongside multiple ball handlers, Caruso, DeRozan, Levine, and he was able to be that connector, which is the mold that I think Killian will thrive in. But Killian really needs to hit that 3-ball. And I get where people are coming from, because once again, with Killian, you look at it in a vacuum, you look at the preseason numbers and you take away everything surrounding it. It's he's playing well, but how does that impact, the diminishing return of not playing Monte Morris, reducing Monte's minutes or taking minutes from Jaden Ivey, who you have more of an investment in. I don't know how that works, but Killian has done everything he sort of can, at least. So I give him a ton of credit for that.
Just cement my place as the Killian hater. We'll move on. It's all right. I don't want to be, but I'll bear the mantle if I must.
All right. Cream Soda. I feel like this is a new person. A shout out to Cream Soda. Who does Monte Morris help more? Cade in the starting lineup or Jaden off the bench? This is easy.
Yeah, it's a good question, but I think it is easy. I think I know where you're leaning too. It's Jaden Ivey, right? I think it's definitely Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey right now is being asked to do a little bit too much creation. And, you take him off the ball even more, kind of lets him be a little bit more decisive, less worried about getting other people involved and setting up the offense around him. He can just kind of go get buckets, which is what I think they want to see out of him anyway, coming off the bench. So I think it's Jaden Ivey. I think he's being asked to do more than what he's comfortable doing right now in the preseason anyway.
100%. Great question, but because I think Monte does definitely help Cade as well. But I think it's definitely Jaden, just because Cade's a point guard. He just needs Monte there to help take the pressure off him, so he's not making decisions every possession he's on the court offensively. So it's definitely Jaden for sure. And if you watched last night's game, I think that would shine through to a lot of fans, at least that first half he had.
Hey, so real quick, what turned around for Jaden Ivey there in the second half? I mean, you brought up a couple times that he
So
struggled in the first, but he played all right in the second. So what switched for him? What happened there?
I think Sasa had the ball in his hands a lot more in the second half in the stint they had
Oh,
together. Felt like that to me at least, and Jaden was more playing that true shooting guard role. He still had the ball in his hands a little bit, but he got out in transition, got a couple of buckets there, and then he hit like a sidestep three. He just got into a really nice rhythm. So I felt like he was playing a bit more off the ball, whereas in the first half, like it honestly just felt like he was trying to get that first bucket on the board to get himself going, and he just could not knock down that first shot. And yeah, he had a real rough possession where he missed a shot, and then the next time down he just barreled down with his head down and like turned it over. Ball rolled out of bounds off his foot or something. So he was just forcing it majorly. So in the second half, he got a bucket in transition. It's like it eased, and he just was able to get into the flow of the game and play off Marcus.
gotcha.
All right.
Nice. All right.
Our Blouses. Cade's passing has been so good. Honestly, I think he could be an 8 assists per game dude as soon as his teammates start hitting the shots he generates. Great statement. I agree.
It's a fantastic statement. So I flagged it because I
Like,
was wondering if you'd agree with it too. I do agree. I think he can get to it. I don't know how much higher than 8 he'll ever get. I mean, it is very hard to get more than 8 assists per game. It's pretty rare. But anywhere in that 7 to 8 range, I think that's absolutely in reach for Cade Cunningham. He's a fantastic playmaker.
man, I just want 30 seconds here just to really dive into his passing, because watching him specifically yesterday pass the ball, he's a little bit slow to get into sort of the scoring side of things. Some of these pocket passes he hits, like in the pick and roll, like he'll hit someone, like whether it was Stu or Duran, like he just like that, that James Harden sort of like one-handed flick bounce pass. Just that stuff is so special. Like, and it just
So
opens
hard
things
too.
up
Oh,
so
I gotta
much.
say,
Like
it's so hard.
it's like, and he's just able to flick it with either hand, left or right. It's truly like something. If you haven't like kept an eye on that as a fan, like watch the way Cade Cunningham's able to find the roll man with a bounce pass in pick and roll. Like it's what makes him so dynamic, and it helps players like Isaiah Stewart that he can make that pass, makes Stewart a bit of a threat on the roll. Like, and then obviously he's able to find Duran. He had 2 lobs at least to Duran, which were just like, it's special. His passing is honestly one of his greatest traits. I don't know if he gets to 8 assists. I could definitely see it happening. I want to see him a bit more aggressive as a scorer instead of being so, I don't want to say pass first, but I think he's a guy who likes his teammates involved. But yeah, his passing. Well, I just missed watching him play basketball. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
such
me
a
too.
joy. Like seriously, it's so like just the poise he has. Like there's a genuine calmness when he's on the court. Like even when he's not scoring, if the shots aren't falling, like just the fact like he's going to get you a B+ shot every time, it feels like, is such like a good feeling as a fan, because I don't think there's anyone else on the roster that can do that consistently.
I mean, yeah, he actually controls the pace of play out there. Everyone
Yeah.
conforms to what Cade Cunningham's doing. And just real quick to back you up even further, if you remember those pocket passes, his rookie year, he really struggled with them. And I think this is one of the most exciting things about Cade Cunningham's playmaking in particular, is that it's continued to grow as well. He kept trying to throw Isaiah Stewart lobs through most of the first half of that rookie season. And then about, after the All-Star break, he figured out just that little dump off, a little pocket
Yeah.
pass, little flick thing that you're talking about there. And he's been leaning on it ever since, specifically with Isaiah Stewart, but he does it with Duran. He's done it with Bagley. Like it's something that has actually grown. We've seen it. We've watched that develop in the NBA. So not only did he come into the league as a fantastic playmaker who really controls pace, but he's actually developed as a passer over the past couple of years, which is like he was already so good. He's getting better. Like, it's so exciting. Yeah, I love watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt it in the first game he played the preseason, but just yesterday it was it was fun. It was really fun. Brought back some of the joy being a fan of the Pistons. All right. Just Football Academy Australia. Of the current players, if you had to pick a starting five in the mold of the going to work bad boys Pistons from an intangible perspective only, what is it? Stats aside. So we're sort of going those gritty players, or are we going like trying to find players to fit that famous starting five?
I think we're trying to replicate that starting five as close as we can with this roster. At least that's how I'm reading it. So that's what I'm going to go for. I mean, I think Cade's an easy, point guard Billups type. Ausar for Tayshaun Prince at the three, fairly simple. And then Duran by default at the five for Ben Wallace. Because as much as Isaiah Stewart got compared to Ben Wallace because he's undersized, Ben Wallace could jump out of the gym. Isaiah Stewart can't do that. So I don't think we can really do it. The tough part is I'm not sure that there is a Rasheed Wallace on this team or anyone that could, 50, more than 50% replicate his skill set. Because you could toss Alec Burks out there and just have him run off screens all day. He does that anyway, and it looks really good. So, like, there's your rip. Start him at the two. Great. But I can't think of anybody like Bagley. Maybe Bagley is honestly probably the closest thing, and it's only on offense because Lord knows Rasheed Wallace could defend and Marvin Bagley could not. So offensively, kind of like a little bit.
Yeah,
That's the closest one I can think of. It's not Stewart.
no, I think it's a credit to sort of the player Rasheed was though, because like,
Yes,
I think it's very, very, and I'll admit I did not watch a lot of Rasheed Wallace. Like that was a little bit before my time of even following really the NBA, those early 2000s Pistons teams. But from playing video games and stuff, at least I have a feel for the type of player he was, and I think he was sort of the original. I don't know, defensive. I know he's more of a mid-range guy, but he could also stretch it out to the three. But then he could like post you up. He could sort of do so much. He's such like a dynamic offensive player when he was locked in. So I think that's a hard player to replicate, full stop, let alone on this Pistons roster.
agreed. And all right, we should answer the spirit of the question because just Football Academy came in with the correction. So I was thinking more of the attitude and the players that are typical Detroit hustle type guys. So you go first on that one.
Well, I think Stu's number one easily, and then I think I still think Ausar's definitely in there at the three. We'll put Stu at the. I'm just going to list the names. Positionally makes it a bit tricky. I'm going to say Ausar, Stu. I think. Do you think Cade's demeanor is sort of like a Chauncey Billups? I'm not. Is that fair? Like he's the leader type.
Yeah.
Can't remember was Chauncey like real physical and in your face? Was he more calm, collected?
Just in terms of personality, he was calm, collected. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we say Cade. I think I'm going to throw Jaden in because I just think he has a fire about him that sort of aligns with that, at least on offense. There's that hustle and maybe just the way he complains. It can get teed up is sort of Rasheed-like a little bit.
I like that one. Yeah. I think you got to throw Isaiah Livers in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know he's hurt right now, but I think you trot out the Cade, Ivy, Ausar, Livers, Stewart, and that's your grit. That's your hustle lineup right there.
Yeah. I think Ivy and Durant are like even for me. I know it doesn't work with the positional thing, but they're like sometimes they're gritty, I feel like, but it's not as they're kind of the same level. All right, good question though. I like mixing it up.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, last question
That's
here
one, right?
Last one from Harry. We got Harry, yeah. Will Ausar's rookie season result in more double-doubles than Durant? Well, I feel like Ausar's actively taking rebounds from Durant, so...
That's a good point. Okay, so I read this as, will he have more double-doubles than Durant did last year? But if it's this year...
Oh, sorry. I think you're correct. You're correct. It's from... So... I think Durant only had like 15 double doubles last season. It wasn't like crazy high, but he also was injured and that kind of
Wasn't.
thing. I'll try and look
Sar's
it
a
up.
good rebounder, especially for a wing. And I know he's been over 8, like you said. Shout out James Edwards, the third's tweet
So
there. But
for some context, Jalen Duren had 19 double doubles as a rookie. That's a lot
I
for
think,
Ausar, I feel like.
yeah, I think that's a lot. Now, I mean, it's possible that Asar gets there a couple nights on assists, right? Like if we start seeing him handle the ball a little bit more later on in the season, that could happen. Um, I'm gonna lean no. It- he's good. He's a very good rebounder for a wing. He's a very good passer for a wing. But to get double digits in those categories while also scoring is a lot to ask for a wing who's not, LeBron, right? Like, or these wings that really handle the ball a lot and are stars. I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he could get into double digit double doubles on the season, I think that was a big win for him. I think
Yeah.
that's a really successful season for Asar Thompson.
Yeah. If I set the over under for Ausar at like 10 and a half double doubles, would you go over under? I
I
think that's
would just
right
hold on
around.
to my money. I wouldn't bet. I wouldn't bet, Jack. I would not be confident to throw any money down. That's too good of a line.
Yeah, look, I'm taking the under on Durant's 19. I don't think Ausar eclipses that, but look, I think he could get to double digits. I think it's going to be a lot of nights around that 6 to 7, 8 rebounds. And I think
Mhm.
he may have a game or two, maybe with 10 assists. But yeah, he's definitely a candidate for the 5x5, 100%.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
Because
is.
sometimes the way they record blocks as well, like they look like they're not always like a clean shot block. Like they can look like deflections and that kind of thing, which he gets a ton of. So I could see him being a
Sar
candidate for a five
Thompson
by five.
may be the best weak side shot blocker on this roster and might be the best period since they've had Jeremy Grant. And that
Yeah.
is
Look,
absolutely wild that I'm saying that right now because, as you
yeah.
know, it takes a lot of awareness to be a good weak side shot blocker. And he's a rookie.
And, no, it was. I just want to like we're gonna finish up in a minute, but I've gone, I've gone over this play a couple of times, but it was like OKC. This is in that first 6 minutes, and OKC had like a shot at the rim, and Jalen Duran blocked it, and then they got the rebound, and then Ausar just came out of nowhere and blocked their shot, like their second shot, and I was just like,
Oh,
this is
that's awesome.
insane. Like, this is just fun. And then, like, a few possessions down after that, like, Isaiah Stewart had a block. And I was like, wow, there's 3 guys in this lineup right now that can just come across and make an impact. I'm not saying they're going to block the shot every time, but they've all got 7-foot wingspans plus, 7 foot plus, all at 6'8" plus, and all strong. And I mean, Ausar and Durant are pretty incredible athletes for their size. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
want to
really
end on
excited to
this like
watch
because
tonight.
yeah, that I hope we get just at least a half of, if anything. Like I always love watching Cade, but I just want to see Asar, Stu, and Duran. I just want to watch them on defense again because those three, like, yeah, that was super fun. I haven't had that much fun watching defense in a while, and I feel like Pistons Twitter, like the timeline was so positive. People were in shock. I felt like because it was just they were just deflecting everything. Like the Thunder for like 6 minutes just looked rattled. It was fun.
I'm gonna say that if they do that again, right? Obviously, I didn't watch it, but like if they do that again tonight, that is a incredible proof of concept for that starting lineup that we all kind of think this is trending towards with Cade, Asar, Bojan, Stewart, Dern, right? Because you've got the shooting there from Bojan, but those 3 guys just wreaking havoc, and you could hide Bojan wherever the hell you want with that kind of lineup. So
Yeah.
That could be really fun if this is something that they're gonna play like that, like you just described. It might actually be a lot of fun.
It definitely something to watch for tonight if those three guys are in the starting lineup once again, for sure. But I think that's going to do it, Wes. That's going to do it. We've got obviously the Pistons tipping off in about 45 minutes to an hour in Dallas. I don't know if any starting lineups have been tweeted out, but I know the game's on Ballet Sports Detroit. So keen to watch that.
Gotta get some dinner. You gotta get some breakfast.
You need to get some sleep as well. Wes has barely slept the past 48 hours due to work commitments, so he's grinding for us tonight. So we appreciate that. But thanks to you, Wes, as always. Thanks to the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, Sean Corp, for allowing to do this. And we have a bit of an announcement coming in the next few days.
Yes, big news.
Pretty exciting. So we'll be dropping that on Twitter and on the Detroit Bad Boys website. So shout out to Sean, as always. And last but not least, shout out to everyone for joining us, everyone in the comments, everyone watching online. We appreciate all of you. But until next week, go Pistons.